Pray for Melina, Deborah.
This one did Outworld a service.
And so shall I.
Ghostoftime1's note. This is a special review of Mortal Kombat 1995 with special thanks to Daimando, based on Mortal Kombat by Ed Boon and John Tobias, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, published by New Line Cinema and Threshold Entertainment, starring Robin Shou, Christopher Lambert, Lyndon Ashby, Bridget Wilson, Talisa Soto, Trevor Goddard, Chris Casamassa, Francois Petit, Enith Edwards, and Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa as Shang Tsung, featuring the voices of both Kevin Michael Richardson and Frank Welker as Goro, rated PG-13. Special footage is taken from Mortal Kombat 11 for Nintendo Switch.
Your brother's soul is mine. You will be next.
It's official. You suck. Shao Kahn wins.
You certainly seem to enjoy this brutality system.
Why don't you give it a try? Think you'll like it. Are you ready to review Mortal Kombat, old friend?
Oh boy, am I ever! And I have a lot to say about this film.
And this is a film I watched in theaters back in 1995, way before Warner Brothers owned the rights to Mortal Kombat.
And this film was made during a time where video game-based movies were at an all-time low. Super Mario Bros., Double Dragon, Street Fighter, all of them abysmal. And then along comes Mortal Kombat, a video game-based movie that stays true to its source material, for the most part. It does take a few creative liberties here and there, but they're so minuscule I hardly even care. Save a few exceptions, which I'll get to later.
You've been chosen to defend the realm of Earth in a tournament called Mortal Kombat.
True on that part, but let's explain the story. Sorcerer Shang Tsung is hosting the 10th Mortal Kombat on his private island representing Outworld. Should he come out victorious, his master, the Emperor Shao Kahn, will claim Earthrealm as his own.
Standing opposed to Shang Tsung are the champions of Earthrealm. 3 particular warriors are under the guidance of the Thunder God Lord Raiden. Liu Kang, a former Shaolin monk hell-bent on avenging the death of his brother. Lieutenant Sonya Blade, a US Special Forces operative hunting the weapons-dealing scoundrel Kano. And Johnny Cage, a Hollywood big shot trying to prove that his skills are the real deal.
It has begun!
What I loved about the Mortal Kombat movie was that it felt like an expansion on the existing lore of the franchise. Sure, I enjoyed the story of the original trilogy, but I could tell the filmmakers wanted to showcase what Mortal Kombat is all about. It also borrows heavily from the Chinese martial arts films like Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon.
Likewise, the movie would end up having a huge influence on the video games. Take Kano, for instance. Originally, he was written as a Japanese-American fighter, but the late Trevor Goddard's portrayal in the movie was so good, the game developers rolled with it and made the character Australian. Goes to show how good acting can inspire people.
Your soul is mine.
Well, speaking of which, you know who stole the show. Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa as Shang Tsung. While not as advanced a fighter as Liu Kang, he relies a lot on treachery and intimidation to gain the upper hand, not to mention he takes his victim's soul. But what amazes me is that Cary is the only actor to appear on Mortal Kombat Legacy and Mortal Kombat 11 as his respective character. That's a legacy worth cheering about.
Shang Tsung is a great sorcerer. Wise to cultivate his favor.
Nearly all the characters are bursting with personality, but we can't discuss Mortal Kombat without talking about the fighting. The choreography really hits the mark for the most part. The fight in Goro's dining hall isn't so great, but everything else really hit bullseye for me. My favorite fight in the whole movie is Johnny Cage vs. Scorpion, though Johnny vs. Goro is a close second, if only for how the fight actually starts.
I know you mentioned there are some flaws to this movie. For me, while I do realize why the movie got a PG-13 rating, I wish it were R-rated. all just to replicate the gore and violence that the franchise is known for. At least the upcoming remake will do just that.
I was never particularly bothered by the lack of blood and gore. The fighting looked brutal enough that I never really gave it much thought. Though, speaking of which, I have to confess that there are a few ways where this falls short of a flawless victory.
Is that so, huh? Well, what's the main problem so far?
Two things in particular stood out to me. For starters, the CG on Reptile is honestly really bad, even by 1995 standards. In no way do I get any sense of belief that a bright green lizard thing is crawling around. The second problem is really more subjective, but I really don't like how Scorpion and Sub-Zero are regulated as Shang Tsung's slaves. I understand time constraints, but come on! The rivalry is iconic!
That's why you left the temple and ran away, isn't it?
Wow, I can understand why you hate that idea. Even I think it's ridiculous. Now, on the flip side, I did wind up liking Raiden in this movie. Not just because he's Liu Kang's mentor, but I also liked his trickster-like personality. This is in contrast to the more recent takes on Raiden in the video games.
I agree. The movie version of Raiden does give off that vibe of great wisdom, as any being of his status should have, but throughout the film, he also exhibits a sense of humor that his game counterpart heavily lacks.
No doubt about it.
Your soul is mine.
So, before we wrap this up, there is something else I want to bring up.
And what would that be, Ghost?
The sheer amount of love that Mortal Kombat 11 shows for the movie. From intro dialogues to Easter eggs in the crypt, to Cary Tagawa reprising his role as Shang Tsung, even now, I'm still completely floored by the number of references.
You're telling me. When future takes on classic franchises add in these nods, it does put a smile on my face, even if it is an Easter egg or a role reprisal.
Alright. Let's dance.
So with that being said, what are your final thoughts?
Despite the aging CGI, I still enjoyed Mortal Kombat. It's almost like those old martial arts films I used to watch with my dad, and it still holds up in many ways.
As for me, the movie may not have aged very well, but I'm still more than happy to watch it again and again. Maybe it's nostalgia, but who cares? Mortal Kombat gets me hyped up and makes me want to shout,
Get over here! You weak, pathetic fools. I've come for your souls.
I don't think so.
Fatality.
Your soul is mine.
Shang Tsung wins.
well, that was certainly an intriguing experience.
What'd I tell ya?